Hi everyone. So in this video, we're going to take a look at the Chapter 8 story from the Ecce Romani textbook. And before we dive in, again, I would highly recommend that you take a look at the book and you memorize all the vocabulary, and the English derivatives will help you too, just to make sure that you've got a good handle on what they mean. But look at the vocab, make sure you have it under control. Look at the grammar too. In this chapter, we're covering verb endings, so you might want to take a look and just make sure that you're comfortable with it. And then when you're ready to read the story, again, read it out loud. Find a partner. Find someone in class, I don't know, a family member, whoever you need. Find someone to read this aloud to. And if possible, if you can find a classmate, have them read it aloud to you. That way you can practice both speaking and listening. But the idea is make sure that you're hearing the story, paying attention to how the words go in order, the endings they're using, and just you'll get a sense of the context and how these all play together and how to translate. It'll just help you as you go. So before we dive in, we want to do a quick review of verbs. So just to refresh your memory, verbs are action words, right? And every sentence you're going to see needs a verb. Without a verb, you really don't have a sentence. So in Latin, the ending of the verb tells you who's doing the action. So in English, we would use pronouns, I, you, he, she, it, we, you, all, and they. In Latin, you don't really need the pronoun. Those pronouns exist. You've seen some words like ego, meaning I, and tu, meaning you. We've seen them, but you don't really need it. Instead, it's the ending of the verb that's telling you who's doing something. And this is something that we don't really do in English. The only example I can think of where we kind of do this is when we change the ending in third person singular. So in other words, you would say, I walk, you walk, but she walks. Right, and we put an S on the end of it. That's as close as we get in English, but in Latin, it's much more complicated because you have 6 different endings and they all mean a different pronoun or represent a different pronoun. So it's not anything too difficult, but it definitely takes a little practice to get used to recognizing them. And that's something that you've been doing for the first 7 chapters anyway. The general rule that you use to form Latin verbs, we call it conjugating, is you go to the infinitive, right? So the second form of the verb that ends in re, and it means to do something, right? The more general form. You go to the infinitive, you drop the re, and you add what we call the personal verb ending. So ost, most, tis, unt. And they represent I, you, he, she, it, we, you, all, and they. So to give you an example of how this would work, right? These are what the endings are and what they mean in English. So in other words, again, like we just said, O means I, S means you, T is he, she, and it, and down the line. So you want to memorize these and make sure you're kind of equating the Latin verb ending to an English pronoun. That way you can recognize it when we go through the story. And in terms of conjugation, again, if I gave you a verb like ambulo, ambulare, which means to walk, the idea is you drop the re off ambulare. So let me show you that again, right? The second piece, ambulare, is the infinitive. If you drop the re, you have ambula, right? We call that our present stem. And then you add on our verb endings, ost, must, tis, unt. Now, the first part is always slightly different. You'll notice it's not ambulao, which is totally fine. For now, don't worry about it. We'll dive into that in a couple chapters in more detail. But for now, just recognize that ambulo has an O on the end of it, which means I walk. Ambulas is you walk, and down the line, right? We're changing the ending of the verb to represent who is doing the action. So make sure that you have these memorized. You're going to see them coming up more and more in the stories, but this is a general rule of how Latin works. And we're going to use this concept of changing the ending to change the person, right? And we're going to expand it and start changing tenses later on. So you want to lock this in now so that you're ready to go when we make it a little more complicated. The other verb you want to think about is the verb esse, the verb to be. Now, this is the most common word, or most common verb, rather, in Latin. And in most languages, it's always the most common, and it's what we call irregular. So, in other words, even in English, if you look at the spelling of the verb to be, it's spelled differently depending on who's doing something. So, for example, you'd say, I am, you are, he, she, it is. In English, we're using the words am, are, and is. They're spelled 3 completely different ways. This is why the verb to be is irregular. And it does the same thing in Latin. I am is sum, you are is est, and he, she, it is est. So sum, est. You'll notice that sum starts with an su, and s and est are starting with an e, right? There's something kind of different going on here. And if you go to the plural sign, you have sumus, estis, sunt, right? We are, they are, you all are, right? It's the endings you've seen, OST, must to son, they're on the end of this verb, but they're just in a slightly different context, if that makes sense. So in other words, one, we're using am instead of o to say I am. But you want to notice that the spelling in front of the ending isn't quite regular. This is why we call them irregular verbs. So now we're ready to move on and take a look at the chapter story. So again, what we're going to do is highlight the different cases so you can see exactly what's going on here. So what we've done is made the nominative case red, the genitive case green, the accusative case blue, and the vocative case orange. So now you can kind of see the story in a slightly different way, and hopefully this will help you with your translation as you go. But remember, you want to take everything we've been learning about noun endings and now verb endings and apply it to the story as we translate. So the first part of the story goes like this. You have Nondom lucet, sed Aurelia mater Marci et Corneliae jam in villa occupata est. So it's saying it's not yet light, nondum lucet, but Aurelia, right? And there's a clause here, kind of a side thought. She's described as the mater Marci et Corneliae. There's our genitive, right? The mother of Marcus and of Cornelia, right? She's their mother. Jam in villa occupata est. Now she is busy, occupata est, in villa, right? So she's busy in the house. Errata est, quod servos sedentes conspicit. So you have, she's angry, errata est, because conspicit, she catches sight of. What does she catch sight of? We're looking for our accusative. It's servos sedentes, right? So servos is pretty clearly, right, a second declension accusative plural. Sedentes is a little sneaky. It's something called a participle, but for now, let's just treat it like a vocab word and know that it means sitting, and the long es ending is indicating that it's accusative plural. So the slaves sitting. Then we keep going. You have agite molesti servi inquit. So she says, come on, annoying slaves. And again, molesti servi is vocative. She's calling them by name. Now here she's not using their names, but she's still directly addressing them and saying, hey, annoying slaves, let's go, right? You need to be working. She continues with cur nihil facitis. Why are you doing nothing? So facitis is our verb, right? The facio facere means to do. And you have tis as the ending. So it's you all are doing. So why are you all doing nihil, nothing, right? Why are you doing nothing? Then it continues with cur vos ibi sedatus, right? So why are you all, vos, sedatus, sitting, right? Tis again means you all are sitting. Now here, we didn't actually need the vos. The pronoun you all isn't necessary because sedatus with a tis ending, like we learned before, means you all are doing it. But sometimes for emphasis you can add it. It doesn't really matter, but just know that it's not entirely necessary there. But she's saying, why are you all sitting there? Ibi, right? Why are you sitting? She continues and says, cur non strenue laboratis, right? Why are you all, laboratis, right? You all not working hard. So non laboratis means you all are not working. Strenue, our adverb, means hard, right? Why aren't you working hard? Then you have omnia statim parare necesse est quod nos hodie Romam redimus. So she says everything, right? Omnia necesse est parare. It's necessary to prepare. So omnia here is our direct object. It's necessary to prepare everything, right? And I didn't highlight this one blue only because it's using an ending that we haven't quite seen yet. So just take it as a vocab term, meaning everything. But she's saying it's necessary to prepare everything, meaning you guys need to prepare everything. Statim, immediately. Quod, because, and here we have a second thought, nos redimus, we, nos, are returning, redimus. And again, the nos is not entirely necessary here. Redimus means we are returning. But we're returning Romam to Rome, hodie, today. Then it says, jam strenue laborant servi. So now, jam, the servi, right, the slaves, the servants, are working, laborant, strenue, they're working hard. So after she yells at them, they start working hard. She calls them out. She says, why are you doing nothing? It's time to go. And now everyone's working. And again, notice how servi, our subject, has laborant with an nt as its verb, right? They are working. Now we continue. And you have tum Aurelia pueros excitare parat. So then Aurelia, there's our subject, prepares to wake up, excitare, right? Parat excitare is our complementary infinitive. She prepares to wake up. So we need a direct object. It's pueros, accusative. She prepares to wake up the boys. Then it continues. Intrat egetur cubiculum Marci. So intrat is our verb. She enters. It has a T on the end of it, so it means he, she, or it. And the subject that it refers back to is Aurelia. So therefore, Aurelia enters. Cubiculum Marci, the bedroom of Marcus. Clamat age Marci, tempus est sergere. So she shouts, right? Clamat. Age Marque, come on, Marcus, right? Again, Marque is vocative because she's calling him by name. She says, come on, Marcus, tempus est surgere, it's time, tempus est, it is time to get up, right? Surgere in infinitive. Then it continues, nos ad urbem redire paramus. We are preparing, nos paramus, and again, mus on the end of paramus means we, so we don't necessarily need the nos here, but we are preparing, redire, to return ad urbem, to the city, meaning Rome. Then it continues, Marcus matrem audit, sed nihil respondet. So Marcus hears his mother, but doesn't respond. Right? So Marcus is our subject, audit, he hears, matrem is the direct object, that's who he hears, his mother. But he responds, nihil, he responds nothing, or he says nothing is a better way to say it. So he doesn't respond to her. Dende, Aurelia cubiculum sexti intrat. So then, dende, Aurelia enters, intrat, the bedroom of Sextus, cubiculum sexti. So she tries Sextus's bedroom first. Clamat age sexte, tempus est surgere. So here we have a repetition, same phrasing. She shouts, clamat, right? And again, the T ending on clamat means he, she, or it, meaning Aurelia shouts. Come on, Sextus, it's time to get up. Tempus est surgere. This time, though, she gets a different reaction. You have statim surgit Sextus. So immediately Sextus gets up. Why does he get up? Because if you remember in our story, right, he's the one who wants to go to Rome. He's excited to go, so he gets up immediately and he's ready to roll. Celeriter tunicam et togam induit, et brevi tempore e cubiculo currit. So he quickly, celeriter, puts on, induit, again, he, she, or it, with the T, it's referring to Sextus, our last subject. He puts on, what does he put on? The tunicum, right, the tunic, and the togam, the toga. So he puts on his tunic and his toga. And brevi tempore, in a short time, he runs, currit, out of the bedroom, a cubiculum. And now we continue. You have Idram, Aurelia, cubiculum marci intrat. So Idram means again. So again, Aurelia, there's our subject, enters, intrat, and again, the T ending is because she's entering. She enters the cubiculum marci, the bedroom of Marcus. Idram clama, age marce. So again, she shouts, clama, age marce, come on, Marcus, right? And she says, nos jam strenue laboramus. We, nos, are already, yam, working, laboramus, right? We are working. Strenue means hard. So she's saying we're already working hard, or we're now working hard, right? And she says, cur tu solus non surgis. Why do you alone, right? Tu solus, you on your own, right? Not get up, non surgis. And again, notice how surgis ends in an S because you, tu, right? You singular is the subject. So she's saying, how come you're the only one not getting up? Why do you alone not get up? And it continues. Marcus finally responds, right? Gemit Marcus. So he groans. And he says, ego non surgo, inquit, quod Romam redire nolo. So Marcus says, ego non surgo. I don't want to get up, or I'm not getting up, he says, because I don't want nolo to return to Rome. Redire. Redire nolo is our complementary infinitive. I don't want to return to Rome, Romam. So he says, I'm not getting up because I don't want to go. Then he continues, and he says, cur mihi quoque necesse est ad urbem redire. So why is it necessary, cur necesse est, right? Why is it necessary? Mihi, for me. Quoque here means also, or to, right? Why is it also necessary? Or you could say, why is it necessary for me to return, redire, ad urbem, to the city? So he's saying, why is it necessary for me to go back too, right? Because I don't want to go. Patrem meum princeps ad urbem revocat. So he's saying the emperor, princeps, right, is recalling, revocat, my father, patrem meum, to the city, ad urbem. So pretty straightforward, subject, verb, direct object. Princeps, revocat, patrem meum. So he's recalling my father to the city. Patrem consulere volt. He wants, and again, volt ends in a T, so it's he, she, or it, and the last he, she, or it that we encountered was the princeps, right? The emperor. So he's saying the emperor wants to consult, consulere. Again, consulere volt is a complementary infinitive. So he wants to consult father, my father. Non volt consulere Marcum. So he doesn't want to consult Marcus. And again, he's talking about himself in the third person. But he's basically saying, there's no need for me to go back to the city. The emperor doesn't want to see me. He wants to see dad. Now we get a change in the action. You have subito, suddenly. It always indicates a change. So subito intrat Gaius, pater Marci, et clamat, sed ego volo consulere Marcum. So suddenly Gaius enters, intrat Gaius, right? Gaius is your subject. And he's the pater Marci, the father of Marcus. We know this already, right? Gaius is the dad. So he enters and he shouts, clamant. But I want, ego volo, right? I want to consult Marcus. So he kind of interrupts and he hears what's going on. And Marcus is saying, nobody wants to talk to me. The emperor doesn't want to see me. Why I have to go? And Gaius says, but I want to talk to Marcus or consult Marcus. And he says, cur Marque, hodie me vexas, right? Why, Marcus, are you annoying me today? So vexas is you annoy. Again, the S ending means you are doing it. Marque here is not the subject, it's vocative. So he's calling Marcus by name. He says, why, Marcus, are you annoying me? Me is the direct object. Why are you annoying me today? Cur non surgus, why are you, again, surgus, why are you not getting up? Cur nondom tunicam et togam induus moleste puer. So he's saying, why are you not yet induus, putting on, right, meaning clothing? Why are you not yet putting on your tunica and your toga, your tunic and your toga? And he calls him moleste puer, annoying boy, right? That's the vocative he uses. So he says, why aren't you putting on, or why have you not yet put on your tunic and your toga, annoying boy, right? So Gaius is really annoyed that Marcus hasn't gotten up. And notice the reaction. Nihil respondet Marcus, sed statum surgit quod patrem timet. So Marcus doesn't say anything. Literally, Marcus responds nothing, meaning he says nothing. But he immediately, statum, gets up, surgit, because patrem timet, he fears, meaning Marcus fears his father. Patrem is the direct object. So he doesn't talk back to his father. He immediately gets up because he's a little afraid of it. So that's the entire story. And again, the thing you want to focus on in this chapter is looking at the verb endings. You're bringing all your old stuff together with subjects and direct objects, right? Nominative and accusative. But you want to specifically look at verb endings in this chapter because you get a nice mix of different endings showing you who's doing the action, right? But the bigger context behind this story is the culture unit, patria potestas, right? Which is the power a Roman father has over his family. And you're seeing hints of that throughout the story, right? So in the beginning, it's mom, Aurelia, who comes in and she gets all the slaves moving. But when she gets to her son, Marcus, he's like, I don't want to go, right? He groans. He doesn't respond. He doesn't do anything. Finally, she gets him to talk after a couple tries. And he's like, yeah, I don't want to get up because I don't want to go. He's being stubborn. He doesn't care. But you might have noticed in the story, as soon as his dad walks in, Gaius, right, Marcus immediately gets up. And he doesn't backtalk him or give any sort of, reasons why he doesn't want to go. He just gets up and gets ready to go. Why? Because he's a little afraid of his father. That's what the culture unit was hitting at in this chapter. Patria potestas, it's definitely a culture where dad is running the family, right? Dad is in control. And they're trying to illustrate that through the story with Marcus's reaction to Gaius walking in. So I'd highly recommend that you go and look at Patria potestas. There's good examples of it. The pictures you're seeing here are three pretty common ones that I like to illustrate in class. In the top left, you have Icarus, right? The story of Daedalus and Icarus. And the story there is Icarus doesn't listen to his father, which would be kind of a no-no in Roman culture, and bad things happen. Down in the bottom, you have Lucius Junius Brutus, right? And the story of his sons who try to, overthrow the newly formed Roman Republic, right? And what happens there. And in the top right, you have the story of Manlius Torquatus. And that's something that you want to look at and kind of investigate too on your own. Again, it has to do with the story of Patria Potestas and listening to your father. So if you get a chance, I'd highly recommend you look these three stories up, or just in general, look at Patria Potestas, because it'll give you the cultural background of what's going on in the story. But either way, now you've seen the story, hopefully you have some better luck translating it if you've struggled in the beginning, or if you thought it was easy, hopefully you continue to feel that way. And this just kind of brought it to life a little bit for you and made you feel more confident as you go. But again, if you have any questions or anything you're stuck on or you'd like answered, feel free to put it into the comments. I'd be happy to help you, but stick with it. And again, keep reading the Latin out loud, keep working your way through. And the more you practice, the better you're going to be.